Hi guys, it's Omer from MMOs.com. I'm going to do another quick weekly news recap for all major MMO news and announcements for the week ending September 28th, 2015. This is episode number 10 of the recap, and the first bit of news this week is from Archlord 2, and it is not pleasant. Webzen announced that Archlord 2 will be shutting down for good on November 24th, 2015. This is a bit shocking considering the game released a pretty big update as recently as June of 2015, but when you look at the game's actual player numbers, it's not that surprising. As Webzen has said now that since release, 300,000 players have logged into Archlord 2, and that's not active users, that's just the total number of players who have ever logged in. And Webzen instead will be focusing on their upcoming title, Asta Online, and the Western release of Elite Lord of Alliance. And we actually did an interview with Webzen regarding Eloa, and Webzen said outright in the interview that In Spirit Online is an illegal clone of Eloa, but still no word exactly on when Eloa is coming out to the West. We just know that it is, eventually. Anyway, rest in peace, Archlord 2. Up next, a bit more upbeat news. Final Fantasy Type 0 Online is announced. It's a brand new mobile game from Square Enix, which will be developed by Chinese studio Perfect World Entertainment. This bit of news comes from the Tokyo Game Show, which is a little bit older than a week, but I found it interesting and worth sharing. It's a bit odd to see Square Enix let a Chinese studio develop a game that bears a signature Final Fantasy name, but given that the game will be launching in Asia first, it kind of makes some sense. North America and Europe are being considered for release, but nothing is official just yet. Square Enix has said that the game is being developed with a global audience in mind, so I suspect it will make its way to the West. The beta test for the game is set to begin in China first, with the game launching sometime in Q2 2016, so that's the middle of 2016, so we got some winning to do. Next up, a small update from Endgames regarding their newest game, Dark Era, which entered the closed beta on September 21st and will run until early October. Now, the game might look like a 3D game, but it's actually it's designed for the browser, and there's a microclient for it, so it's a bit similar to the other games, Chrono Rift, as well as a bunch of the other browser-based games. It's marketed as a 3D hardcore action RPG. That's what the hardcore has to do with it. The game only has 3 classes and a level cap of 99. It's a bit odd to see that the game has only 3 classes though, but considering it's largely a browser game, I wouldn't expect too much from it. Moving right along, a bit of news from World of Warships. Since the game's launch on September 17th, the game is already launching its next update, which introduces the Soviet tech tree to the game, which will of course add Soviet ships to the game. Also including the same update are our new German cruisers, which boast high endurance, solid armor, and powerful weaponry. Time will tell whether World of Warships comes close to the success as World of Tanks, but so far the game is doing quite well. At least the game is already doing much better than the World of Warplanes launch. Up next, a bit of news from Sword Coast Legends. The news is that the game is unfortunately delayed until October 20th, 2015, but it will be launching on PC, Mac, and Linux all at the same time, which is pretty legit. The game was originally set to launch on September 29th, which is oddly the same day as Wildstar, but apparently it is pushed back. And for those that haven't heard of Sword Coast Legends, it's a pretty cool D&D style action RPG, with the game's really unique feature being the DM mode, so players can essentially dungeon master for their friends online and just guide players through a DM experience. So it's really one of the only online D&D style games where one player actually gets to play the DM, so he can set his own adventures and stuff like that. Sword Coast Legends is buy to play, and players who have already pre-ordered the game get the game's first DLC, Rage of Demons, entirely for free. So even though there's a delay, players get something. Up next, a bit of news from Hi-Res Studios regarding the arena shooter Paladins. They released a new trailer which explains the game's core systems. Since the game was announced, I was always kind of curious what the game was about. Didn't really dig into it too much, but this actual new video makes it much clearer. It's an arena shooter, but it mixes card games into it. So basically, they're trying to make every single round of Paladins different from each round. So even if you play the same characters, you won't get the same draws. They also mentioned that all of the game's characters are unlocked at the beginning, so players that spend time collecting cards and be able to build new cool decks that way. And based on the video, the game actually looks somewhat promising. I'm curious to see how it turns out. The first round of early access will be starting somewhat soon, with beta signups already available on the website. Moving right along, Dragomon Hunter's closed beta begins October 15th. The game is from Area Games / X Legend Entertainment. They announced the game's closed beta will begin again October 15th, with the closed beta being supported by a Founders Pack system. You guys know how much I love those. So players that want to get in early can buy a Founders Pack for a minimum of $20 to get into the betas right away and get some other goodies. Area Games also released some more information about the actual game, and that players can't only just capture monsters, but they can also breed them for rare colors or special speed buffs. And the company behind the game, X Legend, is the same guys behind Aura Kingdom, Eden Eternal, Grand Fantasia, and all those anime-inspired games from Area Games. Next up, as many people are already familiar with, Wildstar is set to go free-to-play tomorrow on September 29th. The game has already been free-to-play through the game's public test realm, but if you haven't played it already, there's no reason to jump on now, because again, it is going free-to-play tomorrow on September 29th. The free-to-play version of the game is called Wildstar Reloaded, and I'm really curious how the game does this free-to-play. I mean, will it pull a Terra and become really popular, or will it just kind of fade away? I think Wildstar can do okay, but again, only time will tell. I do plan on checking the game out though within a few days after release, so keep checking on this channel and you'll see my first look. Up next, a bit of odd news from the creators of My Land, Black Gem Hunting. They revealed a brand new game called Golden Rush, which is a Steam Early Access title available right now as a free-to-play game. It's a 4-player team point-and-capture MOBA that tries to innovate the genre. I mean, I do want to give them points for making a four-team MOBA, but the gameplay itself leaves a lot to be desired. I've done a first look video for the game already, but maybe they'll improve it in the near future. Unlike traditional MOBAs, the goal of the game is not to just kill the enemy base, but rather capture objectives and basically get gold. Whichever team reaches 30,000 or whatever preset amount of gold first wins. Moving right along, a bit of interesting news from TBS. Yes, the cable station TBS. Apparently they'll be broadcasting esports in 2016. And yes, that's the same TBS with the slogan, very funny. But apparently this is supposed to be serious business, not so funny. As TBS wants to get a piece of that $278 million competitive gaming industry. Now I think it's a bit of an odd approach because most esports viewers already watch on Twitch. So it'd be kind of hard to see people watching on their actual TV, because I would rather watch on Twitch than go to my TV, because one, I don't even have cable service, so I couldn't even watch it if I wanted to. But I suspect most people want to watch their esports on the computer where they actually play the games, but we'll see how it does. It's still kind of cool to see a mainstream cable network taking esports to kind of a bigger audience. Next up, guys, Robocraft launches its biggest update to date, which introduces the game's creativity and commerce system, which basically allows players to access the community robot factory where they can design their own robots and sell pieces to the public. And for those unfamiliar with Robocraft, you kind of build and battle your own stuff already, and by being able to expand to player-made stuff over here with new designs, it really expands the game's possibilities. I mean, there's already 13,400 designs submitted by the community, so there's gonna be a ton of new stuff to try out. And much like in Dota 2, the people that actually make these creations get a commission from every purchase, so they actually get some money for their effort too. But it's always really cool to see these games rely on player-made content to keep the game fresh, because there's always going to be awesome player-made stuff, whereas devs can only work on so many things at once. It's a really cool system for a really fun game. The next and last bit of news this week is from Hex regarding their legal battle with Wizards of the Coast. So for a long while now, Hex, the collectible card game, has been in a legal dispute with Wizards of the Coast, the guys behind Magic the Gathering, being that the two games were unusually similar. If you've played Hex, you've played Magic the Gathering, you kind of see the similarities, so there's no hiding that. But apparently they did finally settle, so this lawsuit is now behind them, so you can expect Hex to start advertising more and probably reaching a bigger audience in the near future. That they were kind of holding back on their large-scale deployment until they can get this issue resolved, which they finally did, so awesome for them. And that is it for MMO news and announcements for the week ending September 28th. There we go, that's actually correct. Anyway guys, I'll see you guys tomorrow for the podcast. Later.